Here is something to look at. It's me, standing next to the box of my new Neo Geo X Gold limited edition thing, Neo Geo simulation device. Alright, so let's get to this unboxing video simulation. So inside that black box that I was standing in front of are two enormous white boxes. They're huge. I could really barely even get them out of the bigger box that they were in. It was a struggle, but I did it, and here they are. And let's take a look at what's inside them. One box has the arcade stick, the Neo Geo X game card Ninja Masters, the power cable and the AV cable. And the other enormous white box contains the Neo Geo X docking station, the handheld itself, HDMI cable, and the manual. What's cool is that the stickers that they use to keep these boxes closed are styled like the old AES stickers on the game cases, so that's pretty cool. So here's a look at the stick, the power and AV cables, and the Ninja Masters game, which just comes on a little cardboard cutout thing, which I have no problem with as a pack-in game, but if they do come through with more games in the future, they really should come in proper cases. The arcade stick, as shown here next to a real Neo Geo AES stick, is the exact same size, and feels really similar. Actually, this one feels better than my old one, but that's just because it's new and not used. It feels really crisp, and the joystick is nice and clicky, and yeah, it's really actually quite nice, in my opinion. And here's the contents of the other box: the docking station, the HDMI cable and manual, and the Neo Geo X handheld system thingy itself. You notice the handheld has a big warning label on it, warning you not to plug it into the docking station while it's on. So I will adhere to that warning. And the handheld itself is pretty nice. As you can see, it's about the same size as my PSP 3000, so if you have a PSP, you have a pretty good idea of how big the Neo Geo X is. So here's a closer look at the console. It's got a pretty nice feel to it. The stick is a nice clicky thumbstick. The buttons feel good. It generally feels solid. You got the menu and start buttons. The top is shiny, which is sure to get lots of fingerprints, but the back has a sort of corrugated, slightly rubberized feel to it, which is nice. Then you got the L1 and L2 buttons, which both change the screen aspect ratio. You got HDMI, AV out, power, your R2 and R1 buttons, which are for pause. On the side, you've got the game card slot and power on and off button. That's pretty helpful. And then on the bottom here, you've got the brightness, headphone jack, and volume buttons. After it boots up, you get to the main menu screen where you can scroll through the 20 included games. Pretty nice selection of games. Pretty typical titles for the most part, but still pretty good. You can see the games load up pretty quick. Now you notice when it starts in the widescreen, so it's stretched out, which I wouldn't want to play in, so all you have to do is hit the L1 or L2 button, and it will switch it to its normal screen ratio, which means you do get unused space at the sides of the screen, but that's alright. The screen itself, I mean, the colors are nice, the motion seems fine on it. It's a little blurry, though. I think that's just because it's scaled up from the game's native resolution. So it's not as crisp as I would expect from, say, my PSP or my DSi, but it's not bad. And you can see you can adjust the brightness or volume. What I like about those buttons is when you use them, it pauses the game for you while you're adjusting it, so that's pretty handy. But you can kind of get a look at the gameplay here. This isn't the greatest footage, I apologize for that, but you can see it's pretty decent. I don't have a big problem with it. I do wonder why they went with a widescreen. I would have been just fine with the 4x3, but nonetheless, it's alright. And yeah, the sound can get pretty loud. Obviously not a lot of bass, but it's decent enough, so yeah. That's just a little look at the handheld system. Now let's look at the docking station. So you can see the docking station next to a real Neo Geo. It's quite a bit smaller. It's not a tiny console by any means, but it's smaller than the regular Neo Geo. And on the back, you've got the port for your power, your AV out, and your HDMI out. Interestingly, the HDMI output on the back is not on a full-size jack, so I was glad it came with a cable, because I don't have a cable that would have worked with this. I just have regular full-sized HDMI cable things. So, yay. Here's a look inside the docking station where you hook up the handheld system, and you can see there's actually 3 ports that need to be attached, the HDMI, AV, and power, but it's easy to line them up because you basically just line up the AV jack, and then everything else sort of falls into place, although you have to apply more pressure than I expected to get it all the way in, but it's fine, no big deal. And the whole docking station is actually pretty solid feeling. I was worried that the hinge to open the lid would feel cheap, but it feels pretty good. It opens slowly, and it feels pretty robust, I guess. I mean, who knows after repeated use, but feels fine. And the pad inside where you put the handheld is soft, so it won't scratch up the back of your console. And you can see the USB ports on the front, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So let's take a quick look at some footage recorded via the composite output. Unfortunately, there's no S-video or component available. It's just composite or HDMI, but nonetheless, the composite video seems pretty good to me, except that the signal is really dark. On my CRT, I had to turn up the brightness quite a bit to get it to look decent. Oddly, though, I use a splitter to send the signal to my TV and also to my DVD recorder, and I obviously can't affect the brightness on the DVD recorded footage. But that was just fine. I didn't need to do anything. It was nice and bright as it was, which was kind of unexpected. You know, sometimes some consoles will be darker than others, but I've never had a situation where the console looks different on 2 different devices. Bright on the recorded footage, but dark on the TV. I don't understand that. I'm sure there's some reason for it. Perhaps electrons. But besides that, it's pretty good.
Metal Slug!
One thing to note about using the AV out is that, interestingly, the volume setting on the handheld matters. So if you had the volume all the way down, and you hook it up to the docking station and turn it on, the volume will be really quiet, so you're going to want to turn that up. The brightness setting on the handheld didn't seem to make any difference at all. I can't record any HDMI footage, but it looked also okay. The colors seemed fine. But you've got the expected sort of blurriness that comes with scaling up a 480p signal. So yeah, don't expect really crisp 1080p high-end phosphorescent things coming at you. 'Cause it ain't anything like that. Nothing's like that. Anyway, that's just a fast and not very thorough unboxing / first impression of the Neo Geo X Gold X Neo Handheld X Station. I kinda like it. I mean, the hardware seems pretty sturdy to me. I like the feel of the handheld. The look of the docking station is nice. The arcade stick feels really good. Of course, it really comes down to how the games play, and what little I tried, you know, the sound seemed a little crunchy, but okay. The graphics seemed okay to me. It takes a more thorough examination and comparison to make a true judgment of how it compares to the real deal. Of course, if you want the real deal, you should just get the real deal. I'll leave it to people a lot more knowledgeable than me as to how close it is to the real thing. The other aspect is, of course, whether or not Tomo will release any more games for this. If it ends up that there's a pretty large library available, then I think this is a pretty decent item. But we'll see. So my first impression is pretty good. Long-term impression? No idea. 'Cause that takes a long time. That's kind of the whole thing with long-term impressions. Takes a while. And who really has time for that? So I'm just going to give my long-term impression now. I think it's a good collectible item for Neo Geo fans, and will probably be sufficient for those who aren't Neo Geo purists. But if you're really into the Neo Geo, I would think you'd probably want to get a consoleized MVS or something like that. But again, this is a totally made-up long-term impression. I have no idea if that's going to be accurate or not. So, you know, I'm just going to stop talking. Seems like the prudent thing to do at this point. Okay, thank you for watching. We'll see you later.
hmmm.